When reviewing the latest Bond outing, Lawrence O'Toole, a critic for Maclean's, a Canadian news magazine, stated that 007 is like an old friend who an audience meets for drinks every 2 years or so. He regales them with tall tales, winking all the time. What O'Toole may not have known is that this time around is the last time that this particular old friend will ever meet with us again. Roger Moore, at the age of 57, dons the tuxedo for the very last time in 1985's A View to a Kill. John Glenn returns as director for the third time, this time upping the violence to a level we have yet to see in a Bond film. Christopher Walken plays Max Zorin, the psychopathic main villain, while model Grace Jones plays his second-in-command henchwoman, Mayday. Playing the role of Stacey Sutton is the stunning Tanya Roberts, who is most well known for playing the role of Julie Rogers on Charlie's Angels. Some people consider this to be the worst of Roger Moore's Bond films, while others consider it to be a classic. It's a film that continues to be divisive even today, as we might learn over the course of this month's episode as we dissect Roger Moore's swan song, A View to a Kill. All right, here we are. What's up, Harris, Colin? How you guys doing?
I'm good.
Good. How are you,
I
Matt?
thought
I'm
are
great.
we not doing the bear thing?
The what? No, let's
Yeah,
never speak
No,
of
we're
that
not going to
again.
do that. We're not going to talk about that.
All right, so this movie, we've got a lot to say about this ridiculous movie. Right off the bat, we know we're in for something. The movie starts off with a disclaimer basically saying, you know, the name's Zorin. They don't want to offend anyone. It's not meant to be a representation of any real-life people named Zorin. And I read about it a little bit, but it apparently there's a software or like a microchip company or something.
I thought it wasn't even a microchip company.
No,
thought it
I
was
read
a
that it
fashion
was.
company.
Yeah,
Oh,
there
really?
was a fashion designer named Zoran,
Yeah.
and it wasn't even spelled the same way. It was spelled with an A.
With
Right,
an A,
yeah.
yeah. Oh, I had read that it was a Silicon Valley like microchip company.
Well,
that
wow.
Either way, it's kind of a ridiculous thing, as if Christopher Walken's character could ever be confused with anything that would happen in real
is
life.
based on Elon Musk.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, seriously.
Maybe it's just those companies come and go so fast. You know, tech companies can come and go in a matter of.
It was jarring, though, to have the MGM lion roars, and then you expect it to go right into the...
Dun-dun-dun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Instead, you get this very sedate, sober disclaimer. Don't sue us if your name is Zoran.
Yeah.
Um,
All movies should start that way.
yeah. So then we get our cold open.
You're right. Okay. So we got the cold open. It's awesome. The invention of snowboarding. Am I right?
Is this really where snowboarding came from, or did he just popularize it, or is that just a myth?
I think it already existed and was popular, and that's how they got the idea of
It's-
let's put Bond on a snowboard.
It's a little of both. I saw the stuntman whose idea it was is credited for being one of the
Progenitors
progenitors of snowboarding. But yeah, they blow up a snowmobile, and he uses the bottom part of it as a snowboard. There's no other way to explain what he's doing besides saying snowboarding. And it's in 1985, And by 1995, we all know what snowboarding is, basically.
And you can only thank James Bond for that, because up until then, it was only one guy snowboarding everywhere. And and then after that, everyone was like, "Hey, I want to snowboard." And
Yeah,
they
so
had to
here's
ask that
what
guy.
yeah,
I want
here's
to
what I
be
think.
like that old
and
guy.
Guy's name, and that guy's name was John Snowboard.
Yeah.
Right.
And he made a profit.
Here's what I think. I think probably people who lived in mountain towns who were really into winter sports, they were probably experimenting with doing stuff like this also. And there are probably other things with younger people that you could attribute more of the rise in the popularity to, because he was 57 and this movie was not the most successful James Bond movie. And
It was pretty successful.
it's not the most successful.
No,
No,
it's not.
The other ones were more successful. And he's getting old. And part of what they were doing in the movie was trying to look for youth market that they hadn't got yet.
It was a pretty cool sequence, though. It started off as
awesome.
like a typical James Bond. He's in Siberia. He's recovered a microchip. He's being chased by Russians. And it seems like it's going to be your standard Bond ski sequence. And then he hijacks his snowmobile,
Yeah.
which is then exploded. And somehow the snowmobile explodes, and he is thrown clear. And then the exploding snowmobile explodes farther down the hill. And somehow the front
Just the front
board,
ski of it
the front ski
is
of it
exploded directly in his direction
ends
to
up
land
hitting him.
within 2 feet of
Yes,
him.
the physics don't make any sense. The green screen is terrible. The Beach Boys song that they play,
That's so
Surfing
dumb.
USA, is super cheesy.
Yeah.
But on the whole, this is a solid cold open. I enjoyed the hell out of it.
It's
The ski stunts are great. The snowboarding stuff is fun.
it's capped off by him running into a small iceberg, a float that turns out is really a mini sub with a fuck pit in it and a woman.
It's a mini sub with a woman, and the entire interior of the mini sub is basically just one big bed.
Yeah, it
It's like, where did
converts
they put
converts
pillows?
directly into a bed,
Where do they put pillows?
a
and everything?
luxury bed.
Clearly, this was designed by James Bond. He's like, I've got some suggestions. I saw your iceberg-shaped mini sub.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
feel
also-
like. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Him and Q's relationship always seems a little adversarial, but you have to know behind the scenes they are very much in cahoots when you see stuff like this.
Yes, that's because there's hidden cameras in all these things. He's like, back from your latest
Q has got to
adventure,
be a
Bond.
voyeur. He's got to be. He's always.
People.
Shall I check you for STDs again, Bond?
She was a dirty one.
He also blows up a helicopter with a flare gun in this, which is pretty cool.
That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, I thought that was pretty neat. Also, going back to the fuck bed, I feel like, don't you think that whole iceberg submarine thing would have been? It seemed to me like that's, you know how these movies always end with him fucking a girl.
Mhm.
I feel like that's the place you should have ended it. That's a cool place, as opposed to how they end this movie.
I
Yeah.
mean,
It's a little less inventive.
It's almost like we see the ending location of a different movie.
Right.
I'm sure there was an adventure that ended on this submarine. Maybe it was this one.
That's a good way to think of the cold opens when they don't connect
Exactly.
to the movie. Is like, yeah,
We just missed the scene where they call him to congratulate him on a successful mission, and they're like, "Jesus, you're boning again."
yeah. Well, that's what he says. He says
What
to
if
the
you're
woman,
not
"It's
having
5
sex?"
days to Alaska." They fucked for 5 days in a little iceberg.
Yeah, it must have stank when they opened that thing up.
Oh my god, the smell! It must have been so nasty.
nice and warm and like you can't see out the windows because it's so cold out and so hot inside. It's all just fog.
Oh,
Oh God.
I don't think they had enough water for that.
Yeah, no, that was it was a long journey. So after that we get our opening titles, which are a classic, one of the great classic Bond intros by Duran Duran, "View to a Kill," otherwise known as "Dance
Into the fire. Yeah, I was shocked to learn that the name of that song is "A View to a Kill."
because they pretty much only say it in the opening line, and
I think they say it twice. I think it's
They
in
might.
two. I think it's
They might.
the beginning
the
of
chorus
each verse.
is "Dance into the Fire."
Yeah.
Though.
It's an awesome song, though.
It
Duran
is-
Duran
it is good.
is underappreciated.
I'm going to take the contrarian opinion that this is an average Bond song and really an average Duran Duran song.
Ooh, what?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan.
I don't know if you were aware of this, but there's no such thing as an average Duran Duran song.
Girls on Film, I think that's actually below average.
Which is odd because this movie does have girls on film.
Yes.
That song also would have worked for this movie.
You're throwing me off because I find that really funny.
So the way that Duran Duran came to be, the group for the song and for this movie is apparently the bass player drunkenly approached Cubby Broccoli at a party, and he basically, in so many words, said like, "When are you going to get a real band to do one of these songs?
Why don't you get somebody good to do this song?"
Good, yeah.
Because he's never heard of Wings. But no, it's a decent song. It's not Hungry Like the Wolf or Rio.
Rio's my favorite.
Rio's a great one. And we also have some opening titles playing here. It's Maurice Binder again. It's pretty standard Bond stuff, although the innovation here is we have day glow body paint and a lot of very 80s style fluorescent.
It's a blacklight poster type of deal.
Yeah. And all the women have like really high permed hair. And you have your normal titillating, like the opening thing is with a woman unzipping her shirt and then her cleavage. It's like very dark and her cleavage has 007 like tattooed on it.
Yeah.
And
glow in the dark.
There's an extremely risque woman skiing where her outfit is entirely made of tiny streamers that are also
little
glow
ribbons.
in the dark.
It's like Maurice Binder walked into like a 13-year-old boy's bedroom and saw the blacklight posters and was like, "Yes, I'll do."
He was just watching. He's like, the room is full of like Nagel posters and stuff like that. He's like, "Yeah, nice."
Maybe he was consulting with some younger. He's like, "Oh, you're a really big fan of the opening titles? Yeah, man, the nips. But like, tell me more about how they could be better because I actually have to do this. I don't know, blacklight posters.
I like nips when they glow in the dark, bro.
I like to usually like look at nips when I'm sitting in this dark room with my blacklight poster.
High as a kite." They're good, but they'd be better if I could enjoy them high. I think
we're on to
We'll jump right into it after this. We start off with the actual story. So let's have
okay, the 2-minute plot summary.
Colin, get it going here.
All right, are you ready?
Yeah, here we go.
On your mark, get set, go.
All right, starting with the cold open, he's investigating the death of 003. He digs him out of the snow. He's really buried in the snow. He finds a locket, and inside the locket is a microchip. He brings the microchip back to M, and he's like, "I found the microchip." And they're like, "Well, what's going on is we've been trying to make ones that are invulnerable to an EMP. And this is a replica of one of those, and the KGB had it. And that's not good because this guy Zoran, he makes them just for us." So Bond is like, maybe I'll check out what's going on with Zoran. So they go to the horse race. Moneypenny is really into it. She likes horses. They see Zoran. He's really into it. He likes horses. Then he decides he needs to investigate further. So he goes to Zoran's stud ranch. At that point, he finds out they're up to no good. They got this evil monocle German doctor guy. He's drugging up the horses, and he's fucking weird. So he goes to San Francisco because that's where Zoran goes. Because Zoran used to be with the KGB, and he's like, "I'm not down with KGB no more." KGB's upset about that. So he starts investigating. He finds this woman who Zoran tried to pay off, and he has sex with her, obviously. Then they start up a thing, and they start investigating Zoran. They go to the city hall. It burns down, and Zoran tries to kill him. They chase around San Francisco, and then eventually they go to Zoran's mine. They find out the plan is that Zoran is going to cause an earthquake, which will flood Silicon Valley, making his microchips the only microchips, so he can control all production and distribution of microchips. Then Zoran comes in with a blimp after Bond blows up the bomb that's supposed to blow up the fault line, and they battle in a blimp, and they're on Golden Gate Bridge, and Zoran falls off and dies, and Bond wins.
Wow.
Yay.
And we got
Made
8 seconds to spare.
It.
Incredible.
Nicely done. And I think you got everything.
I think I was ready that time.
Yeah, good job.
I was ready.
It is a little more of a straightforward plot than we're used to with some of these that are kind of gibberishy and all over the place, and kind of makes sense in a linear fashion.
Did you hear how my summary became labored when it got to the boring parts?
Yes,
it did. Yes, there are some.
It's like they learned something from the last movie Was it Octopussy that had the really convoluted plot?
Octopus
Right.
had an incredibly convoluted.
Yeah,
plot,
Yeah.
the Fabergé eggs and the circus and
Mhm. Yeah.
General.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of stuff going on. It's like they learn a lesson every time, but sometimes it's contradictory lessons. Like they learn from Moonraker, oh shit, just put a bunch of crazy shit in there, and then they learn from Octopussy, ooh, too much crazy shit. You know.
Yeah.
But I like the plot in Octopussy. In this one, the cold open scene that could have given us a number of interesting plots, including they developed a microchip that's invulnerable to EMPs. That's pretty sweet tech right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then they drop it all together, and then by GoldenEye, they're still talking about EMPs.
Yeah.
10 years later.
Yeah, so they were a little ahead of their time there.
Yeah.
And they chose not to pursue that.
Yes, they were like, well, Zorin was a bad guy, so we don't want any of his fancy tech that could really be helpful to us.
I wonder if they
Just throw it all out. I know we paid for it already. I don't want to see it anymore. I've been burned too many times.
People won't
Zorin
understand.
broke my heart.
I wonder if they wrote it in chronological order and they developed a really good beginning to the plot, and then they got distracted by building their mini sub iceberg cake.
This plot doesn't have enough.
Oh god, we
blimps.
gotta make it the rest of the movie now.
Probably.
All right.
That is a huge distraction. Speaking of huge distractions, we have Sir Roger Moore returning for his, as Matt said in the introduction, last outing as James Bond. He is 108 years old. He simultaneously, somehow, he looks younger than he did in Octopussy, and yet still like the oldest action star I have ever seen in my entire life. I don't know if he had work done. He's definitely thinner in this than he was in the last one.
Yes.
He's rocking the Just for Men pretty hard, and I feel like maybe I can't tell if he had some like an eye lift or something.
He did have work done
because he looks a little bit surprised all the time in this movie.
The internet research says that he did have some sort of plastic surgery.
Okay,
On his eyes. Yeah.
My eyeballs confirm that. He definitely had his eyelids pulled back or something. He's given it his all, as he always does, but he is a billion years old, and just some of these things they ask him to do just had to feel ridiculous for a man his age, especially like with the women they're pairing him with. There's a scene where he tucks the main love interest into bed rather than seduce her, and it felt like the nice, like platonic. It was the most appropriate scene he had with a woman in the last several movies, actually, where it was like, yes, this is what you should be doing: tucking a young lady into bed who needs a little help after a long day, and not seducing her.
It's a good scene. She's got silk sheets.
I read that he found out that he was older than Tanya Roberts' mother.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That is something that he harped on as one of the reasons he knew he was too old.
It took him that to figure it out.
I read a quote from Connery saying, around the time this movie came out, saying that he wasn't going to do another one, and he was like, Bond should be played by a man in his 30s, 30, 35. I shouldn't be doing it. Roger shouldn't be doing it.
Right.
We're too old, you know.
Right,
and it's
basically saying he was already too old when he made Never Say Never Again.
Yeah, and they've been too old for a while. Honestly, if you look at how old Roger Moore was when he started, he should never have made it even half this far.
It's crazy to think that they replaced Connery with someone older than him. That was like a foolish mistake, you know?
Big mistake.
Yep.
But I mean,
it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not for this movie so much, but for Live and Let Die, he's great.
He had a good. Well, was that the first one?
Yes, that's the point. That's my point.
Yeah, he had a good run.
Yeah,
it's just
the beginning of it was good because he was a little younger.
Got increasingly distracting.
Yeah,
he's not the only one heading for the exits in this movie.
Lois Maxwell, still looking good. Just
looking real good.
They put her in like a fancy dress, because they go to the horse races where people dress nice, I guess. The horse races in America in this current day are not like that anymore. Well, the Kentucky Derby is, but like the ones that happen just on the regs are not like that.
I kind of felt bad for I kind of felt bad for Lois Maxwell because it's like they had to keep on acting like she was like this flirtatious kind of hot dish, and she looks like somebody's grandmother, and like she's not. I mean, she couldn't age gracefully and become like a matronly old woman with like gray hair and an appropriate dress. They keep on dressing her in these like frilly little outfits with her hair done in these like modern fashions, and then she's got this old lady's face, and it's just like, oh my god, it looks like a man in drag a little bit, and it's like, and it wouldn't if she looks like it wouldn't if she could look like a normal grandmother. I'm telling you, it's a rough thing to keep on having to fit her into. She's in her 50s, and they keep on jamming her into these little girl clothes, and it just looks ridiculous.
You may have a point, but I feel you're not giving her enough credit for being a nicer looking older woman.
Reality is breaking your heart.
Does she even share a scene with Roger Moore?
Right, yeah. He comes in and he doesn't see her, and then he looks over at the hat rack because of the whole hat gag, and there's this flowery, humongous hat on there, and he's like, "What the fuck is this?" And then she comes out and she's wearing this, extravagant dress that's for, going to the horse races. Like it's overly formal, and she looks debatably really good.
Poor Moneypenny. She never married. She just got older and older. Finally, James Bond was just giving her pity sexual harassment.
But but their final scene, each of their final scenes in the movie is she's crying because Bond is, thought to be maybe dead, but obviously he's having sex. And so she's crying in her last scene because it's, her farewell. And then his last scene is he throws a towel. So he's throwing in the towel.
Wow. I didn't catch that.
It's like the whole movie works on another level.
This thing's got layers, baby.
You can, I feel like, it's like her last scene, put her in a fancy dress, and this is the last time. And
Colin, how will you move forward?
I don't know. Her horse didn't win that time, but James Bond, of course, picked the winning horse and gave her the ticket.
What a gentleman.
What a gentleman.
All right, moving on. Let's talk about Max Zorin, otherwise known as Christopher Walken. The great Christopher Walken. We know this guy. He went on to be an A-list
He was already
actor?
an Academy Award winner at this time, which is a first.
Wow. What did he win for?
Deer Hunter, right?
Oh.
Is that a Nom movie?
It is a Nom movie.
It's a back from Nom movie.
That counts for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to clarify.
So he's a famously idiosyncratic actor and kind of a weirdo. In this movie, they dye his hair just
to make him more
bleach blonde,
Nazi-like.
To make him a little more Aryan looking.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's very feathered, too. It's got a lot of wafting and floating going on.
There's a lot of interesting hair in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
But so Christopher Walken plays Max Zorin, who is like we come to learn a science experiment gone wrong. He's
a Nazi eugenics product that was raised by the KGB.
Yep.
And became a Silicon Valley
entrepreneur.
But oil money first, and then a Silicon Valley entrepreneur.
That old story.
Yeah.
Heard it a million times.
He's introduced as a man who is French natively, but speaks 5 languages without an accent, which I think is amazing.
Such a cop-out.
Also hilarious because Christopher Walken has his own accent.
Yeah, he's got a Christopher Walken accent. He can't even speak English without an accent. Are you kidding me?
I really think that's something Christopher Walken is famous for, though, having his own specific accent.
Yeah, it's the Christopher Walken accent.
Which does make that line hilarious.
So yeah, he speaks 5 different languages, none of which are heard in this movie.
But, as far as casting, this part was written for David Bowie with Sting
offered
in mind.
It was offered to David Bowie, and he turned it down because he said he didn't want to spend 6 months watching his stunt double fall from bridges. Yeah. So then it was offered to none other than Gordy himself, Sting. And he turned it down. I don't know why.
Maybe he was beefing with Duran Duran. I wish that was a famous.
So then
beef.
next up in that line
80s.
of succession, you got David Bowie, Sting, the natural next choice, Christopher Walken.
Of course.
They should be a band. Think about that. What a
pretty good
fucking band that would be.
Christopher Walken, of course, would play the cowbell.
I gotta hanker it. The only prescription.
Then we have some other interesting actors who pop up in this movie. So we've got Dolph Lundgren, who plays one of Gogol's henchmen.
His first appearance.
It's his first appearance, yeah.
Apparently, he was just on set that day visiting his girlfriend, Grace Jones,
Mm-hmm.
and filled in. This was the same year that Rocky IV came out, though, so he was not long being an anonymous.
Wow, I didn't realize it was the same year.
That's the same year? 85? Yeah, okay.
That's
Wow.
crazy. Yeah, so
I've
he was
done
an
2 movies.
unknown in this movie, and then
I was
I don't
an
know if he
unknown.
was completely unknown. I think he was, known, but not like he
But
wasn't.
this
a
was
star.
his first
I mean,
film
he was dating
appearance.
Grace Jones, so
Right.
obviously somebody knew him.
But he was probably known as like a Hollywood muscle guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is like a muscly dude. He's having sex with this muscly woman.
And we need him for like 2 shots.
And we can, you know what we could do? We could put him on camera. What? Yeah, we could put him on the camera.
A Hollywood story.
So who else do we have? We have an actress.
Well, let's check our board. Dolph Duty Sucky Sucky.
Dolph Duty Sucky Sucky.
So we got a whiteboard
We
in
took
here.
notes this time on a giant whiteboard, and on this line it says Dolph Duty Sucky Sucky, because of course our next actress is Allison Duty, best known for this movie and also Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. She played one of the villains in that movie too.
She's the female villain. She's what's it? Ilsa.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, yeah. And she reaches for the grail
And she falls.
into the pit.
Yep, she chose poorly.
Well, the mistake was wearing gloves, obviously.
Yeah.
We all saw that.
Let's get to the real important thing about her. Her last name is Doody. Doody.
And she didn't change that. In fact, maybe she changed it. Maybe that's her stage name. I don't even know.
Think about this. Like, if you're an attractive, like, blonde actress and you come into Hollywood and you tell people your name is Allison, they're like, oh, great name. Duty. Like, do you think... Why didn't she change her name? I don't get it. Do you think that's why her career, like, went nowhere? She did these 2 movies, and then that's, like, a bunch of TV stuff, and...
I don't think you could rule it out. I honestly, it's
She's
hard-
good. She has a good look. She's pretty. Like, I don't understand. She could play both good and
She's
bad.
Very
you know?
good in Last Crusade. Very good in Last Crusade.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I feel like
I'm just
could've
laughing
gone
so
much
hard
farther
because
than
we spent 45 seconds talking about something else besides the fact that her name was Duty, and you're looking at us with rage the whole time. Like, what are you guys doing? Her name is Duty.
You can't talk about
Duty
anything else.
believe.
Oh, my God. So, yeah, there's a whole lot of duty in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, there could have been more Duty.
Yeah.
Of course.
Do you think that's why her death has her, like, floating in water at the end?
Yeah. Well, eventually that water all went out of the cave, and so it kind of got flushed out along with all the Duty.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. It all makes so much sense now.
This movie works on so many levels.
Oh my God. And then of course we have so the third part of our Dolph Duty Sucky Sucky line is Sucky Sucky, and that is in reference to Papillon Susu. Is that how you say it? Papillon.
Sure.
I have no idea. It sounds French.
She could be French. I know nothing about her. I've
Butterfly.
done zero research.
Papillon is butterfly in French.
It is, yeah.
It's part of the movie because of the scene later.
She is an Asian actress, and we know this because they dress her in like a, what is that called? Like a kimono or
Yeah, it's very stereotypical.
very stereotypical Asian garb. I think she even has like
Oh yeah, the chopsticks as hairpins.
As
yeah.
hairpins, yeah. And like she just pops up halfway through the movie. Suddenly there's an Asian.
She's just in there when we see her as a trio of female assassins with Duty and Mayday.
She just pops up. But we saw Allison Duty earlier in the movie.
Right, but we don't see her until they're like, oh, we need
Pretty much the mine.
I don't
Yeah.
ever remember-
Oh no,
I
she
feel
shows
like
up
she-
in
the
the
mine.
city hall.
I feel like she was in the background of some scenes, but she never whereas Duty.
Do you think she received a
Duty was front and
promotion
center
like
at one point.
not on film, like in the world of henchmen? She got a promotion like throughout the course of this movie, and that's why suddenly
like in the world of the story?
like in the world of the story. Yeah.
I get
maybe.
the impression that Mayday and Allison Judy's character and this girl are like in a little female assassin
Love
maybe
triangle.
intimacy is part of it. Yeah.
Mayday did seem very distraught when Duty and Sucky
And they do make it a point that Mayday has sex aggressively.
scary sex.
I'm not trying to,
no judgment.
Yeah.
But the other thing that we know her from,
Oh yeah, we're spending so much time talking about her. She's most famous. She played the prostitute in Full Metal Jacket.
Which is why we wrote Sucky Sucky
Yes,
on the board.
because her famous line is "Me love you long time, me sucky sucky." Right? Is that all she says?
pretty much.
Yeah.
I think she says it multiple times. Though.
Doesn't
Yeah.
she say other stuff like in Vietnamese to the other Viet Cong guys or something? Is she the one?
Those lines are less famous, Colin.
I thought you were asking if she had other lines.
No, I only care about those 2 lines, which of course have been used in like rap songs and sampled and all sorts.
But
of
she
things.
betrays them in Full Metal Jacket, right? To the VC guys.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't remember. It's the same girl.
We discussed that in depth in our Stanley Kubrick podcast. Which
we should do a Stanley Kubrick podcast. That would be
we
fun.
should.
Yeah,
I feel like that one would get silly.
Additionally,
in
we
a
have,
weird
we
way.
have other henchmen and other characters. Zorin has another henchman whose name is Scarpine, whose only distinguishing character, he's like a boring guy in a suit, except he's got a scar on his face. And I think somebody at some point was just like, this guy's too boring to be such an important henchman in a Bond movie. What can we do about it? And then some makeup artist was like, walked over with like a pen and was like, zzz,
Yeah.
scar on the face.
Literally looks
Solved the
like
problem.
someone had a red marker and drew a line on his face.
Exactly. The lamest henchman ever.
But now, what does this guy really do aside from using
He's
a
hard
submachine
He's
gun?
a hardline Zorin loyalist.
Yeah, and actually, he's the only one, because in the end, Zorin betrays everyone, turns his back on all his people.
But not
including Mayday.
not the German doctor
But-
who created him.
Yes, but not, yeah, exactly. Not the German
And
doctor
not this
who
guy.
created him,
And not
Grandpa
this guy.
Nazi horse
Yeah.
doctor, and not Scarpine.
Because this guy never leaves his side.
Yeah, that's exactly the difference. Is like he trusts Mayday to go off on missions and he sends her out to do stuff, but this other dude is like basically like carrying his shit all around. It's like his valet almost.
Are we? Where are we at? Are we moving into? We're moving into characters, right? Let's talk about
we're deep in
Zorin's
characters.
character. I mean, this guy. Speaking of selling Mayday off, he is really into the monocle doctor guy and the Scarpine guy, and he's got some weird shit going on. He's fucking weird, man. Like, okay, when they're in the blimp in the end, and it's just him and Scarpine and the Nazi horse doctor.
Yeah.
Grandpa Nazi horse.
Grandpa Nazi horse doctor.
Yeah.
Grandpa Nazi horse doctor comes up from the back of the blimp and he's like, "We really did it." And he's like, "Yeah, only a few more seconds now." And then he gives him that
Nothing
reach.
can stop us now.
Yeah. And then he gives him that kind of reach up around and like holds him by his head. Did you see that scene?
I
You
feel
know what
like
I'm talking about?
he sort of cradles his head, and I feel
Yeah.
like was it just, did I fill this in my imagination, or was Grandpa Nazi horse doctor rubbing his shoulders as that was happening in kind of a creepy way? I might have made that up in my brain, but that's what it felt like.
Yeah.
This guy, Grandpa Nazi horse doctor, it was part of the German eugenics program.
You
that
missed this
spawned-
entirely?
that spawned Zorin. And apparently they have a very intimate father-son type of relationship. It's very creepy and weird. And I also thought it was weird that he is like the horse doctor, but he's also like a human doctor. It all seemed very strange.
Well,
yeah.
the horse and the human are pretty close
Yeah,
in
they're almost the same.
anatomy.
They're basically the same thing.
But
yeah.
but he's he's obviously a father figure to Zorin, but he's not really his father. But clearly to Zorin, he's something more than just a father, I guess.
Well, the background on the character is that when the Germans created them, they created these designer babies with super high intellects, except they were all quote unquote psychotic.
Yeah,
So-
by experimenting on concentration camp victims.
Yes, and also by experimenting with steroids, like in vitro steroids.
Right.
So that's the sort of the weak scientific explanation for why.
How
Zorin's
based
a
in
lunatic.
truth is that?
Not
I would
very.
say not at all.
No.
But
yeah,
the
not-
Nazis did do.
Oh, they did.
Oh,
all
experiments.
sorts
that
of-
okay?
yes,
Yes,
that part of it,
there
yes.
were Nazi doctors who did sick experiments on concentration camp victims, but steroids and genetic manipulation were not really a part of it.
Yeah, except for like normal genetic manipulation.
Right, yeah,
of like,
okay,
of
yeah.
like selective breeding. and
Selective
stuff like
breeding,
that, yeah.
yes.
So it's sort of based in the idea of fact.
Okay, yeah, it's based in the idea of fact, but the fact that that could happen in that way is pure science fiction.
Yeah.
Yes, don't confuse this James Bond movie for anything that might have happened in real fact, as the opening disclaimer told us.
Right. But that's a pretty cool villain backstory for like how evil he is, but it gets totally handled poorly. Christopher Walken has very little screen time. The scenes he is in, he's dynamite in. The scenes where he has lines, he's better. When he has no lines and they're just telling him to act psychotic and they're saying shoot a machine gun at people, it looks stupid. Because it's like, this guy is, you can tell he's a better actor than that.
He seems like he's enjoying the hell out of himself the
Right.
entire time. I thought this was actually a weak Bond villain and a lame character, but I can't blame Christopher Walken for that.
Exactly
he
what I'm
seems
saying.
delightful throughout it.
That's
very
exactly what I'm
high
saying.
energy, and it seems like he had a lot of fun with it. And some of his he's got a very he's weird. So some of his line deliveries are like, "What movie do you think you're in?" But then other times it actually kind of works.
Right.
So I feel like a lot of times, like his death scene is amazing because at some point he's about to fall to his death, and at some point he realizes that, and he just starts laughing.
Yeah,
I
love that.
And it seems so authentic. It totally makes sense. It's not something. It's an odd choice.
And
but
the
it
choice
works.
to cradle the grandpa Nazi
Right.
doctor head
Yeah.
is
creepy and odd.
yeah,
and
creepy
it works.
is the right choice for that character. But the choices he's not making are clearly the mistakes, I feel like.
I have a question. How many times do you think the name Zorin is said in this movie?
Like, what's the over under on it?
I don't know the answer. I just want to
okay.
know what you guys think because it feels like it was mentioned like 100 times at least.
And you see it in print.
And you see it in print
very often. As well.
way
Yes, a lot.
too much. Yeah.
There's only one name that comes up more prominently, but we're not ready to talk about that yet.
I think we could. I think we could put it in there.
And that name is St. John Smythe. I'm sorry, excuse me. That's St. John Smythe.
Smythe. St. John Smythe.
Smythe. Somebody explain St. John Smythe to the folks at home who aren't privy to this.
Okay, so when Bond goes to investigate Zorin's stud ranch, it's really a chateau, a French chateau in the country, a really big palatial one. And it was built by, and it's a real place, and it was built by a French noble who thought they would be reincarnated as...
Reincarnated is when you come back as a member of the band Korn.
That's if you're really bad in this life.
All right, mic drop. Let's get out of here. Reincarnated.
If you're really
New
bad,
album.
If you're really bad, you got to be in Korn, and your last name is Duty.
Okay, he thought he'd be reincarnated as a donkey or a horse, and so he built the palace to be a palatial stable palace with stables.
Yeah, because he says like, "Oh, is that the stable over there?" And he's like, "Oh no, that's like the servants' quarters. That's the stable." And
Yeah.
the stable is like this massive thing.
Right. So when Bond goes there, he goes under an alias. He needs a cover, and because he wants to buy a horse under this cover. And he chooses James St. John Smith. And that's what it says on paper. But immediately when he adopts the name, he starts calling himself James St. John Smythe. And every other character he confronts during this whole sequence and scene, he makes sure to tell them that his name is St. John Smythe.
He loves saying St. John Smythe.
And they understand what he's saying 100% every time. No one is confused or baffled by this name.
In the ones, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Although it is a British, it's like the name Sinclair is from Saint Clair, so there's like a history of taking these given names and shortening them, and I guess St. John is one of those.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think it's very common, and I think that's why he's so delighted by it. That it's like so weird. He gets to say his name St. John Smythe.
Right, I think we're supposed to
over
think
and over
that
again.
he's trying to sound like an aristocrat, right?
Yeah,
by doing that.
I suppose.
Because he's also part of his cover is also to basically harass his valet, which is really a horse trainer disguised as a valet.
Yeah,
who's
so
helping him.
He's got this valet, his man Tibbet,
Yeah.
who is who joins the Quarrel Club as the as the loyal assistant, who is great and a fan favorite, and everyone loves him, and he's doing great, and he's so loyal and so confident. So he immediately gets killed by Mayday, who
Sneaks into the back of his car
somehow, and then strangles him from behind.
I think maybe that's what Sucky Sucky did. Because we're not
they
sure
were just-
who's in the back of his car.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's the time that Sucky Sucky was there because... No, we know that Sucky Sucky wasn't in the back of the car because we know Mayday was in the back of the car because the two girls, Duty and Sucky Sucky, were both in another car.
Oh,
which
she
is
was
why
with
he's-
her?
which is
I know
why
he
he's gotta go
sees
to the-
her at the gas station.
Yep. He's got to go to the
Okay.
car wash because he's being followed by them, and he said he was going to the car wash.
Right,
And then he
okay.
goes to the car wash, and then Mayday kills him there. And then we actually have two of these Quarrel Club members because later we have a CIA agent, an Asian CIA agent, who...
Doesn't he get strangled in the back of a
who
car too?
also gets strangled in the back of his car by Mayday. And
Don't
this
these
is the
people
kind
check
of,
the back seat?
We don't see that on screen.
I've
though.
got a real problem with this because this is the kind of this is the kind of laziness they have in this movie of like they're just sort of going through the motions on a lot of stuff. And I feel like this is one of those moments where if you have her sneak into the back of one guy's car and strangle him to death, and then you have him sneak into the back of another guy's car and strangle him to death, I feel like you're setting it up for a third time where she'll sneak into the back of Bond's car
and he'll
see it
get
coming
the upper hand
and have the upper hand or something. But when you don't pay it off, you just didn't think of a cool second way to kill somebody. You just use the same gag twice because you didn't think of like two different ways to kill a dude. You know, it's not like, I don't know.
We didn't see her do it the second time. With the Asian guy, we didn't see her do it.
We totally do.
Yeah, he leaves her house and he gets in the car.
Yeah. Actually, we see more of it that time because we're not seeing it like through the car wash.
Oh, okay,
we
right.
See her grab him and
yeah, that is a little weird.
And
also,
I don't know why I didn't honk the horn.
Also, it's a little confusing. Is she part of another eugenics project? Because at one point they imply she has superhuman strength.
She is a superhero. Yes. I don't think there's anything in the movie that suggests that. But aside from her actually like lifting grown men over her head, like she's Andre the Giant or something, and twirling them around and throwing them
like with greater ease than Andre the Giant ever would or did,
and like cranking that big thing that's actually like the old rickety mining equipment that she's hand cranking to lift James Bond and a like giant bomb up a thing.
Right, and then there's the whole when she's wrestling with or they're fighting or whatever with Christopher Walken.
Yeah, she's
that's
doing
a good
karate
scene.
training with Christopher Walken.
Yeah,
and they're sort of sex wrestling.
They go from karate training to fighting to rolling around on the ground to him kind of forcefully being like, okay, it's like maybe gonna happen now. And then when that gets interrupted, she's like, oh man, that was not a good interruption.
I feel like,
and then she jumps into bed with Bond, and then very obviously
takes charge.
Yeah, shifts to the position of top.
She was the man.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good that we're talking about Mayday because I feel like I don't know that Grace Jones is a great actress. She doesn't have a lot of lines, but this role is all about like the look. And I mean, I swear to God, I think she brought her own wardrobe for this. She's got such a distinctive look. It's like she joins the pantheon of like the Odd Jobs and the Jawses and like the just distinctive like that's why painting a scar on a guy's face is just stupid and fucking insulting.
Right? This movie runs the gamut.
Where you have Grace Jones as like this like one of a kind, human specimen.
Right.
And then you've got another guy who's like boring guy in a suit and they're like, oh, just put a scar on his face, he's fucking fine.
Right. And he's the one who lives.
Yeah. Well, until he's exploded by dynamite.
Yeah, right. I told you
they're both exploded.
Yeah, everyone dies by explosion in this movie.
I told you I watched the BTS thing. There's an interview with Grace Jones, and she's like, so I was really worried when I came on to set the first time. I brought my own makeup, and I did my own makeup, and I thought, they're going to ask me to leave set after what I've done here. And I walked on, and I talked to John Glenn, and he's like, yeah, could we do a little more rouge? And she was like, okay, I'm ready.
I found my people.
Yeah.
All right. We have some other interesting characters in this movie. There was a police officer character who was very reminiscent, or he had vibes of J.W. Pepper.
But he looked like Sipowicz from NYPD Blue.
Like exactly like him.
He looks exactly like him, yes.
Dennis Franz's great uncle.
He looks very Dennis Franz. He's got the uniform and everything.
And then, of course, we have some Bond girls that we have yet to talk about. We had the Russian Bond girl who shows up for a little bit. Her name was, what was her name?
Pola Ivanova.
Bond, of course, meets her when he's under the water, right? Isn't that where he sees her?
Scuba, yeah.
Scuba. You can never have enough scuba. and Bond likes the Pola.
Nice.
And she has a great line when they're in the hot tub. I don't know if it's a great line. It's actually kind of a dumb line. But she goes, oh, the bubbles, they tickle my Tchaikovsky.
Yeah, oh, that was great.
That was a good one. So yeah, Bond has sex with 4 different women in this one. The most in the Roger Moore films.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know you were keeping score.
I did. That was in the research, actually.
Oh, okay.
But I do know who the 4 are. There's the first one in the iceberg fuck pit. There's Mayday. There's the Russian girl we're talking about, and then there's Stacey Sutton, the good girl who helps him win.
Tanya Roberts, who broke out in Beastmaster, posed for Playboy.
Well, she was in Charlie's Angels.
Charlie's Angels,
and then was in a few bombs additionally.
Yeah, her career totally tanked after this.
And then ended up playing the neighbor mother on That 70s Show.
I did not know that.
That's it. I knew her from somewhere.
Yeah. She's not great.
Yeah, she's not a good actress. I'm
Joins-
sorry.
Joins the long line of pretty,
If you're if
pretty
she's a
but
big fan of
boring-
us, I'm sorry, Tanya, but I don't. I'm not.
She's
a
very
huge
boring.
Fan of your acting.
Yeah, not her strong stuff.
You seem like a really nice lady, and you're a nice looking lady.
But
and all
also,
that.
and just even aside from the acting, just a terrible character of like it drove me like when she was in the
Oh, God.
elevator and she's just screaming,
Help!
"James, don't leave me! James, don't leave me!" Like talk about dead weight. Come on, lady.
Talk about a
Like,
scene you don't need in the movie. Talk about a poorly written character.
Well, let's stick with the first half for now, and talk about some scenes we did need in the movie, such as a scene where Bond goes to Paris, and he is consulting with a detective named Aubergine,
Which means eggplant.
Which means eggplant. And I was wondering, is this like how long has eggplant been a euphemism for penis? Because this could be a dick joke.
I
'Cause
think,
he's kind of a swarthy, slimy little guy who talks about sex a lot.
I think that it didn't become as much of a euphemism for penis until after the emoji age.
See, that's what I was thinking. Was eggplant pre-emoji or afterwards? Because I think it's odd that they would name the character Aubergine.
I think maybe for some people it was pre-emoji, but it really...
But your penis really had to look like an eggplant for that to make sense for you. But,
Well said. Well said.
But he meets this detective who's investigating Zorin at this butterfly show. It's like a floor show at a club or something. Or
You know, a
stage show at
butterfly
club.
show.
Yeah.
Come on, people.
It's a
and
restaurant
woman is
in the Eiffel Tower,
and a woman
and they're having a show where a woman charms butterflies,
by
but really
whistling
they're
at them.
puppets.
Like,
But
you can
does
see
the audience know that?
Yeah, because you can
If
see
they're
the
smart-
guys with the fishing poles that are dangling the butterflies.
But
above the
the
audience.
fishing pole people are wearing all black so that they blend into the scenery.
They
It's a
blend
very
into-
nice
It's
production.
a well-lit
It is
club.
a
I don't
French,
know.
beautiful stage
I think
production.
it's a French thing. Is actually what it is. But Mayday, in disguise as one of these pole guys, takes the place of one of these pole guys and uses a poisoned butterfly on a fishing pole to assassinate Aubergine. And Bond chases her out into the Eiffel Tower, and she runs up the steps of the Eiffel Tower, and he's got his gun out, and he's chasing her, and she lassos his legs with the fishing line and trips him up. And then as he's running up the stairs to try to catch up with her, he sees her skydive off the Eiffel Tower. Then she's parachuting to the ground. And I like these moments because it's like at that point, it's like the chase should be over. And Bond's like, fuck no, not having that shit.
No.
He jumps on a descending elevator, gets down to the bottom, steals a car from
a cabbie
yeah,
who's openly drunk and still drinking wine while waiting for a fare to drive around
This
a
is France.
city. Yeah.
it's a French thing. The cabbies drive better with wine.
Yeah, so they don't do the French total justice with the stereotypes there, but you know,
it's like
It was the 80s.
Mr. France.
The 80s, yeah.
And that was the president of France, actually. But he steals his car. He goes on what is a pretty badass chase, featuring like a thing where he's driving this shitty little hatchback, and he drives it off a jump, and it lands like it goes over an overpass, and it lands on the roof of a double-decker bus, and then goes off the bus, and lands on the ground. And he drives it down down a flight of stairs. It's like real like Bourne Identity type shit. It's
pretty cool.
And at one point, the car gets severed in half.
Yeah,
and it's
perfectly.
apparently front wheel drive because he just keeps on driving the front half of this car.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. First it gets cut in half from the top, top to bottom,
the top
and
gets
so he
sheared off.
ducks down and it becomes a convertible. Then it gets hit from behind and gets cut in half from the back, and then he drives a little half car to chase her down.
Yeah, and
which is
she's
kind of
meanwhile-
cool.
She's meanwhile in a boat, and she lands on a boat,
A tour boat,
Yeah.
with a wedding going on underneath it.
and he gets onto the boat, and then she
A
jumps
booze
off,
cruise, if you will.
It is
Yeah.
Yeah.
on the Seine.
And she escapes, and it's a decent chase scene. It's part of the more interesting part of this beginning of the movie.
It's a good sequence. The stunt of having a guy jump off the Eiffel Tower, that was a whole big thing.
Well, yeah, so they had the two stuntmen, and they planned on shooting both of them doing their jumps off the Eiffel Tower. But the one guy did it so well, and they got the footage that they said to the other guy, like, hey, we don't we don't need you to jump today.
Yeah.
And he was like, fuck, I don't know if he was French, but he was like,
He was
fuck
not.
that. I must jump. This is France. Where is my wine?
He was another English guy, not French at all.
So he jumped off the building, off the Eiffel Tower, without permission. And this, like, the whole production was, like, mad at this dude. And, you know,
Because they almost got kicked out of Paris. When
yeah.
they still had, you know, multiple, like, at least one more full shooting day in Paris, if not, you know,
Probably
another week
more,
or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows?
And you know, they're under the, I mean, Paris is the capital. They're under the permissions of the whole French government. Everyone's watching them because jumping off the Eiffel Tower is a big deal to them, as it should be. And yeah, they almost shut down all of production just so this guy could, you know, prove that he could do it. And that guy got fired and never got to work on a Bond movie again. And he said he was a big stunt guy with them, and he said, you know, the other stunt guys who worked on the Bond movies after used to call him and thank him because he got to do his job.
Rub it in.
Yeah.
But this is a good point to talk about how the first half of this movie is pretty tightly paced and kind of moves from one set piece to another pretty well, and has interesting stuff like all the, you know, the cold open's good, the scenes at the horse place are good, we got this great chase sequence. It's like building into a really fun movie, and then it just sort of stalls. It's like they I don't know if they ran out of ideas or it seems like there's just filler in the second half of the movie. Like they didn't have enough plot to sustain meaningful scenes, so they just start throwing crap in there.
Some of it, I think, is that the Stacey Sutton character is poorly written. Some of it is that they did not negotiate well managing how much they're going to commit to the plot and how much they're going to commit to having big action sequences that they want to get in. And, you know, locations and action sequences over the substance of what's in the writing. And then the Stacey Sutton character was not a great character, and we spend, you know, a good next half hour of the movie after we get through the first half with her learning very little about anything that's going on in the story, seeing very little happen.
Hanging out at her house a lot.
Hanging out at her house.
Wait, I got a question for you guys. Sort of a random question. So when the first time that we're in her house and Bond is like creeping around her house, the cat scared the hell out of me. Like, I don't know why. I must.
Oh, you mean Pussy?
I must.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the cat's name is Pussy.
Yeah, the cat's name is Pussy. She has a cat in her house, and there's like this fake out moment where Bond's like creeping through the house, and all of a sudden there's a loud noise and a cat goes running by.
Right.
And I don't know why. Maybe I was paying too much attention, or maybe I was half asleep and wasn't paying enough attention.
I think it's
but
that.
either way, that cat scared the shit out of me. I jumped up in bed.
It starts to really drag, and he's walking around an empty house for no reason.
Yeah.
Slowly.
But then you get a nice scene of him shooting guys with a shotgun that just won't die.
Right. Yeah, because it's loaded with rock salt.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty gnarly. I was like, wow, he's blowing people away with this shotgun. And then you realize they're not dead.
Yeah. But even still, like, I mean,
Just the...
it feels like you go from, you know, watching a Bond movie, and then all of a sudden you're in, like, an episode of, like, a ripoff of Magnum PI or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
He's helping the girl who's got to defend her house from...
Yeah, it's like shot like TV in a way. You know?
It becomes like a little
yeah.
screwball in some points. Like
Yeah.
these guys, like they pick themselves up and they run outside and they all jump into the car,
they dive
and
into the
drive
windows.
away.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it,
but
like,
very
skids
much
out.
one location that is a house in the in the burbs somewhere, or in the countryside somewhere.
And doesn't she even say something like? So the whole thing is like she's selling all her belongings to like make money, to like cover.
To sue Zorin or to keep this lawsuit going to block Zorin from buying her father's company.
I mean, I buy that, but something about that felt phony to me too. Like immediate, like so it gets explained so much later. You see her house, and it's like this huge house, but there's no set. You know, there's no like.
Right, it's an empty.
Right,
It's an
exactly.
empty house.
And then she doesn't explain why it's an empty house until after this action sequence and after they've been talking a while.
Yeah,
And
it just something
And
felt
that's
wrong
not-
about it.
that's not a great backstory for this pivotal character. It's really a character where you're using the character to pivot the story in a new direction, kind of, or like back, or like, you know, from middle to end or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, I don't really have much of a story. I'm just, like.
And
here.
Also, it's just like a little too much of a, because not only is Zorin bought her father's company or took over her father's company in a hostile takeover, and she's trying to get it back, but she also is a geologist, and the only place she could get a job was working for the state geology department at City Hall, which is also where Zorin has to get all his permits and is doing some corrupt shit there, just coincidentally with the guy that she works for.
You know what? You know what struck me? I'm getting a little bit off of our outline. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to take us like in a different direction here.
Don't mention the outline on air.
You know what struck? Okay. You know what struck me as really weird? There was almost this attitude towards Zorin, especially when you see like the City Hall guy and some of the way the other characters talk about him. Besides the fact that the eugenics made him a psychopath, and we know that's why he's evil. He's not really shown to be evil. You know what I mean? It's almost like if this woman, because this woman is not going to win this legal battle, and like no one's going to care.
Yeah, it's like nobody else can see how bugfuck crazy he is because nobody's seeing him in those moments where he does crazy shit.
Because everything he's doing publicly, I think for 1985 was
pretty
not
legit.
Crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like your Elon Musk comparison.
Yeah,
right.
If Elon Musk is hunting humans for sport, we wouldn't know about it. Like we see him get high on a podcast and we're like, Jesus, this guy's nuts.
But it's almost like we're supposed to assume that he's hunting people for sport, but not. But if we know about it, that means we know he's doing it because he's a psycho.
Right. Yeah, it's like too
But
obvious.
as long as he's rich and doing it privately.
Yeah. I mean, just like Zuckerberg does.
Yeah, well, what does Zorin do that is psychotic in this movie? What's the first instance of...
Well, we know he has a meeting with the other people who have any interest in silicon chips, and he basically says, I'm going to destroy the industry. And I think we're supposed to be okay with that, even though he kills
scene.
One of those guys.
Yeah, I love that.
But it's lazy because it's ripping off the Goldfinger thing of like, oh, you don't
Yeah.
want to be in part of our thing? Well, then I've got to excuse you from our meeting because it's private, and then they throw him out the.
But it's been long enough that it's like sort of a wink to it instead
Yeah.
of straight up copying it.
Exactly.
And it's done so differently,
I guess
It's openly stealing from Goldfinger, but it's part of the same series, so they're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
But if you do it too much, then it's just regurgitating the same shit.
Right.
And this movie was also regurgitating.
But
already
even
a few
with the
other
horses
things,
stuff, they know he's cheating, right? They don't know how, they can't prove it, so it's okay. You know what I mean?
But does that make him a psychopath?
No. Yeah, no.
He openly calls him a psychopath to his face.
His greed and ambition
Yeah.
are fine. This was the 80s. That
This is
was
the
good.
80s.
That's just what I'm saying is like
until he's machine gunning miners to death, people were like, no, this guy seems cool.
right. But if you were to kill those miners without machine gunning them and to do it privately.
Oh yeah, if he had just caved in the mine around him like he initially planned, like I don't know that is what separates him because if he had just caved the mine in around them like he was planning to make money, I would be like, well, he's not crazy. He's just really kind of ruthless. But when he's like he's gonna kill them, but just in case, he also wants to murder them before he kills them
and laugh while he's doing it.
That's what pushes him over the edge into psychopath territory. Also, like he must have been like he must have had a little bit of a risk thing because he's also the one who picks up Mayday after she escapes from her Eiffel Tower assassination. He picks her up in a boat personally.
Right.
Like, Get Scarman to do
why
that
would he
or
do
something?
that? Yeah, he should have got Scarpine to do that for sure.
He's a hands-on kind of dude. He loves the rush. He wants to feel alive.
Yeah, he is a psycho. But
I guess.
What I'm saying is, without the character being a psychopath, he still seems like he was going towards evil. Maybe,
but in a much more socially acceptable way.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
So going back to the boring parts of this movie, I mean, we got to give the people what they want. the boring parts.
Sorry.
After the house.
Well, it's not boring if it's just stupid and insane and pointless. It felt boring watching it.
Yeah. What did we really get out of the house scene? Just that
Bond. Oh, he didn't have sex with her yet.
Right.
He doesn't have sex with her till the end.
She's all tuckered out and he puts her to bed. Yeah,
So yeah, what do we get out of that? And then we go right into the City Hall scene.
Yeah, City Hall, which is just an awful series of scenes.
What does it say up there?
Garbage.
Right.
Because it's on fire, it's hot garbage.
Hot garbage.
So they go to City Hall to look at what?
Documents that prove that Zorin was bribing
a psychopath?
the guy or something. I don't.
Yeah.
Okay, so they know Zorin has a mine where he's up to no good, right?
Yeah, he
And-
pumps seawater into
He's
his.
pumping seawater. He's fracking, I think. Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, he basically is fracking.
to try
yeah.
to try to cause an earthquake that will sink Silicon Valley and eliminate all
Under
this
the bay.
competition.
Yeah.
Competition, yeah.
Which is a ludicrous plot.
Yes.
Will that really work?
I mean, it may still happen. I don't know. But at the time, ludicrous.
If I had more time to prepare, I was gonna look at topographical maps for a while and try to
If
see
you came
I-
in here with topographical maps and started showing us the impossibility of the plot,
I
would
wanted to
love
do that. I wanted to do that. If I had like one more hour, I
It
would
is
have
a
done that.
valley.
I'm not
Yeah.
arguing the topographical discrepancy.
And like where the fault line is on a map. I wanted to look up all that
My
stuff.
question is, if he destroyed Silicon Valley,
They just build it somewhere else.
wouldn't they just build it somewhere else?
Yes. But they would have to use his chips.
Yeah. Like
Yeah,
Harris
no,
just
but I-
looks like he had an epiphany.
But I mean,
They
I think-
could build it somewhere
but I think
else.
it's Silicon Valley because of the mines there.
Yeah,
didn't all the tech companies follow where the silicone was?
Uh,
I mean, I'm sure there's other places to get that, but he seemed convinced that if he could sink all of his competition,
he
would
was
be the
building
only
up
mine
a
in town.
surplus of chips that were from the beginning of the movie supposedly invulnerable to even a nuclear blast. So he's thinking he's going to destroy a big chunk of the supply and a bunch of the suppliers, and at which point
But if he's got a better product already, then shouldn't he just sort of?
Yeah, he's already rich.
And he's already got the only.
But is he rich
he's already
enough
got
for
the only
1985?
microchip that can withstand an EMP.
But
So,
yeah, but does he really care if he's not trying to get richer?
I don't really care. So, anyways, they go to City Hall.
They go to City Hall. Christopher Walken and his female goons.
Mayday. And Duty.
And Duty.
And Sucky.
They just walk into this guy's office.
They just know that Bond is coming there, and they catch him, and they talk to the other guy. How, I think is his name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right?
How?
How? Or why? One of those.
What?
But they don't need this scene. Like, we know the mine is where he's up to no good. They should have just gone there to begin with.
Well, he has a cool little bit where he kills the guy
And
with
they got
Bond's
a 2-hour
gun.
runtime to fill, so give them some.
Yeah, these movies are typically 2.5 hours long, and so they needed an hour of
They
garbage.
they needed a little filler here. But yeah, he does the thing where the guy he tells the guy whose office it is to call the police because justifiably Bond was breaking into his office, and he's like, call the police, tell them that we've got a break-in, and the guy does that, and then he's like, what are they doing breaking in here? And he's like, well, what happened was they came in here and they broke into your office, and their plan was to kill you because you fired her today, and they've got a grudge against you. And then they were going to light the office on fire to cover their tracks, but they got trapped in the elevator and burned to death. And the guy's like, oh, but that means I'd have to be dead.
That means I'd have to be.
Yeah, bang.
And then he
dead.
says dead and shoots him. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, which, okay, so here's how they fucked up the Christopher Walken character again. Because we need another scene to show that he is this character and he's performing it well, and to involve the audience in seeing the story of that character, we need this scene. But this scene is a terrible way to do that. It doesn't give him any drama. He just looks like another typical thug. And the only way we understand the difference between him as, an honorable industrialist and a psychopath is that he shoots and kills a guy. Right? We don't see that, like, his whole plan is psycho, right? You know what I mean?
That is kind of what distinguishes him throughout, is that from other honorable or dishonorable industrialists, is that he keeps on shooting people.
Yeah, right?
It's his defining characteristic as a Bond villain.
But they don't stress the fact that his
Murder.
plan will kill like millions of people also,
Yeah. That would make him a pedestrian average bad guy.
Yeah.
He wants to go the extra mile and actually personally murder people. And then they trap Bond in
The elevator.
What is her name? So Stacy.
Stacy, yeah. I always
Stacy.
forget it too. I think it's I start to say that it's like something else. I don't know.
I always want to say blonde 80s girl, but then I remember. Oh, blonde 80s. Yeah, Stacy. That makes sense.
But Stacy, yeah. I don't know. They don't say her name a lot, so it just seems like she's doesn't have one.
But they
in the
light the
movie.
building on fire. They call her Miss Sutton a lot, but I'm not
Oh
gonna
right,
call her
that's
Miss
the other thing.
They light the building on fire. They firebomb the top of the elevator.
With Molotov
They
cocktails.
literally smash a Molotov cocktail on top of the elevator. It bursts into flame, and so Bond and
The whole place looked like linoleum to me, and like, would it burn up like that?
I think that was the actual city hall of San Francisco.
And they actually did burn it to the ground.
No, they didn't. But what they did was they put stuff on the roof that made a really big flame, and then they shot it from the ground so that it looked like the fire was coming out from the middle of underneath the roof.
Yeah, there was just like pyrotechnics.
Yeah, it was basically just a big
magic.
torch on top of the building, but it looked like the middle of the building was on fire so much that it was making a torch.
But when they
out
show
of the
like
top.
the elevator bank, and he tosses the Molotov.
Well, that's on a set.
Yeah, but my question is, would linoleum light up like that?
Well, my question is,
I don't think linoleum is particularly flammable.
Why do
I do not think so.
throw a Molotov cocktail at the roof of the elevator and then Bond just leaves through the roof of the elevator? Like, that seems like that would make that the exit that you couldn't use. And
Yeah, there
Bond's
was no...
solution is like, ooh, the roof's really hot. This door's really hot. And he eventually pushes it open. And
There was no clever escape.
No, there's no clever escape.
It was just
Because this scene is garbage.
an escape.
It is
yeah.
a garbage scene. And then they get outside, and that's where our J.W. Pepper character comes in. Not the real J.W. Pepper, who actually might have livened this thing up a little bit. But
And it's that classic Bond villain thing of like, he doesn't watch him die. He just like leaves him and assumes he's dead.
yeah.
Right.
Although if you've lit the whole building on fire.
Which he already did once, too.
Yeah,
He put him in that car and dumped him in the lake.
Yeah, and then he escaped from the car. Oh, I thought that was pretty clever, too, because he escapes from the car, but then he can't surface because they're watching and waiting for him to come to the surface. So he lets the air out of the tires and sucks the air out of the tires to survive underwater.
That was cool.
That
was in the first half of the movie.
Yeah, that was in the first. That was in the good half of the movie.
Good half.
In this half of the movie, the scene ends with him just going out the exact same way he came into the elevator through the fire.
And the whole time the woman is screaming, "Help me!
James, don't
Help
leave
me, James! Don't leave! Don't leave! Help me! James!"
That was like about 30% as annoying as the actual movie is. And then outside, he gets hassled by the cops, and instead of and he says,
There's fire trucks all
and
around.
he says, ask Detective Yip from the CIA. He's supposed to whatever. He's my handler. And the guy's like, yeah, we just found him dead. And then instead of saying, well, call somebody else to the CIA, James Bond's like, screw it, let's beat it. And
He just turns on a
knocks over the
hose
cop.
comically. knocks the cop
over. The
over.
cops with a fire hose. Then he steals a fire truck and leads
From
him
an
on
active fire scene.
From an active fire scene, and leads him on a merry chase, destroying like 12 cop cars. And this all could have been resolved with like, okay, fine, take me to the station.
Just
You're
give
gonna
him
feel
some
like a
credentials
jackass.
of any kind.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm going to steal a fire truck.
Steal a fire truck and drive around the city destroying shit. The ladder comes off the fire truck. It crashes a bunch of things. Cars are getting wrecked everywhere. Every police car on the force. And it was like the end of the Blues Brothers, where like the police cars are smashing into each other. They get caught on a drawbridge at one point.
Yeah, the ladder's swinging all around willy-nilly for no reason, and he's
a
just
bunch
hanging
more
from
wasted
it.
time on a scene that's not that good as well.
What percentage of their budget do you think they spent on just this sequence? Like 5% maybe or something? Like,
I don't know.
More.
It's a massive amount of money
They-
for this elaborate sequence, all of which was totally unnecessary. And that's why, like, if there's no stakes, like, he's going to get away,
Right.
But there's got to be something compelling us to watch. And if we're like spending the entire time going, why didn't he just turn himself in and have them call the CIA? Why is any of this necessary? This isn't the best way to do things. Then we're just questioning like why this scene's even in the movie, and then we stop giving a shit about like it doesn't matter how good the sequence is, how elaborate the stunt is. I just don't care.
I was already questioning why they're doing this when they went to City Hall at all.
Exactly.
I was a little bit questioning why he went to that woman's house first when he's, or why they stayed there so long, because the plot wasn't moving at that point.
Even if, let's assume, like, he doesn't have his credentials on him and his man is dead. Even if they arrest him and bring him down to, like, the county jail or whatever, eventually they would figure out who he is. They're not going to not know who he is. He's going to call M or, like, whatever.
He can get M on the phone, which is, like, I'm pretty sure normally the San Francisco Police Department cannot get M on the phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But apparently the mayor who was of San Francisco at the time in real life, who was Feinstein, was a big Roger Moore fan. And so when they showed up, she was like, you guys are going to do whatever you want. This is going to be a great time. You're going to love San Francisco. And by the time they were done, they were like, we're doing the premiere here.
She was like, light City Hall on fire.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Basically. You brought Roger Moore? Roger,
what
did you hear they're going to
boring thing
set the
happens-
City Hall on fire?
What boring thing happens after? Is that when they go back and eat the quiche?
No, they drive the fire truck all the way to the mine.
Oh yeah, right.
And somehow they get away with that. They're just
Yeah,
like,
they
okay, we'll
just
park it behind a
drive up.
bush or some shit.
Yeah, they
what the
escape from
fuck?
the cops.
Well, we forgot. Like, there was one part that I was looking forward to. Where the cop calls ahead and he asks the bridge to be raised. Right? There's like a drawbridge, and it's raising. And I thought to myself, oh, this is it. This is the big stunt of this movie. They're gonna have a fire truck like launch over a drawbridge, exactly. And then they do it with like trick photography. Like they show it driving up, and then the next shot is like it's driving down on the other side. You don't even really like see it jump.
It does a jump, but it's like only like a 3-foot jump.
Yeah, but they don't show it. Then I
Yeah.
thought, oh, the cop cars will do it, or like 3 of them will stop, and then the one guy who's like determined to stop Bond will be stupid enough to like actually go over
And launch, but he doesn't launch. He just gets to the top and then falls back down and hits the other cop cars.
Yeah,
Which also was a very violent fall, and I was like, I'm sure that cop would have died.
yeah,
Yeah,
or like
Because
got
James Bond
broke their
couldn't wait
neck
5
or
seconds to
something.
explain
A
himself.
cop would have died in that.
All that damage because he couldn't
Because
explain
he didn't
himself.
want to take the 20 minutes to be like,
Right.
listen, guys, I'm James Bond of the Secret Service.
I'm sure there is somebody. There's somebody with the
I'm
CIA.
a top secret spy.
It should have taken less than 20 minutes. It should have taken 5 minutes. Okay.
I don't know how many times I got to tell you guys, I am a top secret spy.
Yeah, he could call Felix Leiter at the very least, right?
Right. Yeah. But he wasn't in this movie because he was not written into the script.
Yeah, it was lame. So then they get to the mine. And the mine was cool. I thought the
Oh,
mine set was awesome.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
that's when they rebuilt the. That's how they rebuilt the studio for that.
Right. So yeah, Pinewood Studios burnt down while they were filming this movie, and they had plans to shoot there, so they had to go off and shoot the location stuff until it was rebuilt, and it was rebuilt as the Cubby Broccoli
007 stage.
Yeah. And there you go. So from like
It was called the 007 stage, then it burned down, then they rebuilt it and called it the Cubby Broccoli 007 stage.
why did they do that? Do you think just to like
I don't know.
smooth things over?
But in the BTS, there's a little part where Roger Moore's giving the speech from like the opening. He's doing the ribbon cutting, and he's like, they didn't make it this size because of Cubby's girth. They made it because of the size of his heart. And I was like, nice.
He mentioned Cubby's girth in the speech.
Yeah,
That's a little true.
I was like, it was a huge roller coaster. I was like, is he what? Girth?
Is he saying
And then I was like, oh, his heart. Oh, Roger.
The mine. So yeah, the mine I think is the start of like a cool ending. You know, like I thought there was some interesting stuff that happened there. I think the whole middle section can go.
I mean, I was fairly bored with most of the mine stuff too, just because you knew what was going to happen. And
yeah, just looking at
Yeah.
the set, you're like,
Yeah.
this thing's gonna come.
You know what my
crumbling
favorite
down.
part is when they go in the back room and they have a really nice map with like colored lights that explains how the plan is going to work. Do you remember that part?
Yeah.
The map is so cool.
Is that the part? Wait, when Bond discovers
It's
it?
Bond and the girl, and they go in a room and they're like, it's pretty obvious what the plan is, but they need to explain it to the audience. So they basically talk it out between the two of them what's going to happen. But they just happen to be in a room that has an interactive 3D map of what's going to happen with light that lights up. And so they're just pointing to it and stuff.
I wish
Which
I
is
lived in a
stupid
world
scene.
where that sort of technology was really exciting to see in a movie. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I
you
mean,
Collins World?
Because I was fucking pumped.
that's when like the water fills up and you see like it turns blue.
Yeah. The whole section of the map goes from, having stuff on it to being blue.
We get it, audience.
It was, yeah. It
That
was
map
very
is so
descriptive.
awesome.
But I also
All I was
wondered-
thinking was like, I wish I could be in that room just to like play with this.
I also wondered, didn't any of the miners ever look at that? Weren't any of them ever in that movie? At least the foreman, and going like, wait a minute,
It's
if
a
he
secret
does
room.
this, we'll all be.
Yeah, that's what I
drowned."
wondered too. Like, again, we're always wondering like the motive of the henchmen. Like,
Yeah.
do they stand
I
to
think
make
they
money?
thought they were regular miners, even
They're-
though it doesn't seem like that mine mined anything.
Yeah, but they're sitting on this massive pile of explosives, and
Yeah, they're literally loading
it's like-
bags that say explosives
Like
on them.
Yeah.
keep on tearing down those things that are supporting everything. Don't worry about it, guys.
I mean, it's not
Follow the
uncommon
plans.
that they use explosives in mines, right?
They'll explode things.
But
in mines.
they-
maybe not to that
They
level.
found the lowest point in the mine and made them a giant pile of explosives.
Yes. It was suspicious. The miners don't ask questions. I mean, these miners are probably being paid very well. And I think
Yes.
it's a tough game, mining. So I think if somebody's like, "Hey, I'll pay you a lot of extra," you'd be like,
But it makes
this
you wonder.
doesn't make total sense to me, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it.
It makes you wonder if they're even minors at all, though. But they do have a weird scene where when he gets there, he makes Bond put on a hard hat because they're like, "Oh, they better not recognize us." And he's like, "Hold up, sir. It's a hard hat area."
Yeah, they make
It's like,
him put
so
it on-
why are
yeah.
they?
Well,
Why are
were-
they really into the OSHA
I
laws?
mean, that's the thing. They were more concerned about OSHA than they were about like spies, which means they probably were just minors. they were like, as long as you got your union card and a hard hat on, you can work here. That's it.
Come on through with your fire truck.
Yeah, come on through your fire truck.
Stolen fire truck.
But this is where the movie really the walking thing really goes off the rails as he was doing the it was almost like a Tommy Wiseau level of transitioning from like gleeful mania to like very seriousness to like disappointing sobriety to like manic episode again. Every second was a new adventure as he cackled and machine gunned innocent miners to death, who he was also going to explode anyways.
Right.
Yeah, they start blowing the plates up, and then he grabs a machine gun with Scarpine, who also has a machine gun, and they just take turns like annihilating everyone. And it seemed like what they did was they said, "Okay, Mr. Walken, just like shoot the gun and just make a bunch of different faces, and we're gonna choose which ones."
That's what it seems like.
And like
And they chose all of them.
yeah. In some of them he's laughing, and some of them he looks like really intense, and then he just seems confused. And it's some of them it almost seems like after they yelled cut, and he's just kind of like standing there. Yeah.
Some of them he was looking off camera, getting some direction, nodding his head, and then turning back.
Right. So this goes back to my point. They did not treat the character correctly. They could have actually explored it, and like we could have seen why he's a psychopath. Instead, they pretend that him just shooting a lot of people is how we know outright that he's bad and psychopathic.
What do you think they could have done to make him a more compelling villain at this point in the movie?
I think we should have had him kill off all the miners, not by just machine gunning them. See, I feel like this is influenced by the times. At this point, we're getting the 80s action movie where we start to get all these action movies where they start to become defined by the body count. You know what I mean?
Like Commando.
Commando
Came out the same year.
Rambo, Commando, all that stuff. That's when they started talking about, when they were doing, like analysis of movies, they started talking about, well, each year we're just basically getting movies with higher and higher body counts. Okay. And so this scene is like, we still got to make this guy look crazy and evil. And this is a movie in its time. He's just going to fucking shoot all these people with a machine gun. And it looks like a typical 80s. It's a guy standing there shooting at a bunch of people with a machine gun. And that's all it is. And they didn't have the the foresight or the courage or whatever they needed to say, let's do something better than that, I think.
You literally just described what happens in the movie. You said nothing different. Like I don't know.
But we all agree it didn't work.
So do you agree with me or not?
I would have liked to have seen him turn against his master, like maybe in a scene in the blimp.
Fascinating.
The doctor could have said like it's all going according to plan. And he could have been like "fuck you, buddy," and shot him and threw him out the blimp or something.
That would have been funny.
Yeah, like he's turning against
Or like
even.
but
But it's not a comedy though.
Or like a Return of the Jedi thing where he like takes him like Emperor style and throws him.
Shooting lightning bolts from his hand.
Okay.
Well, no, it would have. I mean, I think we all agree that they wasted a talented actor on a kind of half-baked character.
I think he did the best with it, with the role that he could. I mean, in some weird way, he is a standout villain, even though he doesn't do anything like.
That's why my argument is that it could have been better if it was more. I think if it was more in his hands and less, I think it could have been better, and the fault is more with the writing and less with the performance.
They should have just given him more to do, or more
Exactly.
conversation. Get him in a room with Bond a little more, because I feel like that's where we really get the great villains. The Doctor knows, and the Goldfingers, and the guys like that are like have times where they interact with Bond and they have their little moments of, no, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. That's
Right.
that's what the fun of a Bond villain is taunting Bond.
And that's why the City Hall scene is so fucking bad.
Yeah, exactly, because he spends. I mean, that's why it's like on the cusp of being good, but it needed to make more sense, and it needed to be like organically in the plot and in their interaction and rivalry with Bond. But they never really set up a rivalry. He like shit talks Bond sometimes. He's like, "You are such a clumsy idiot. You keep on stumbling into these plans, and I catch you every time." But he's not. He treats Bond like he's not really that important, even as Bond continues to foil his plans and get in the way and survive his assassination attempts. He never looks at Bond as if he's a real rival or real peer or real danger, which is part of the fun of these things when these guys take it personally that Bond is coming out.
And I think it's because they don't give him the time or the lines to give him any kind of depth with that.
They would rather do a bunch of stupid scenes that we don't need than a couple of sort of character building scenes for the villain. But that sort of brings us to, after he guns down the miners, that's got us into our finale, which starts with him double-crossing Mayday, and he's going to blow up the mine and leave her in there. And I think it's even Scarface guy says, "But what about Mayday?" And he's like, "Screw it, I don't care."
Right.
And when she finds out, and also finds out that because he flooded the mine, her Duty and
her women friends,
her
Duty and
her
Sucky
are both dead. She decides to team up with Bond and try to foil his plan to flood Silicon Valley, and they have to remove a bomb from below the ground. And once again, she displays her super strength by manually operating some mining equipment that looks like it's like made for like 6 men to crank, and she does it by herself.
It looks like it's been rusted into a still position for tens of years.
It would have been cooler too if Christopher Walken's character was the Nazi. He was the role of the grandpa Nazi guy, and that Mayday was his like work of art, like his
that was
his creation.
Yeah.
And maybe like if she had, or if there were more than just her, like he had a team of them or something. That would have been cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's a part of the failure of the Mayday character is, why is she super strong?
Right.
Is she part of this eugenics project?
Yeah, she's got no story at all.
Yeah,
She's
and they have some kind of
mystery.
connection that they're clearly working with when they show the karate sex scene thing.
Yeah.
Does that mean that they were, trained together as superhumans, or does that mean they found each other and this is the only strong woman that he liked, or whatever? We don't know.
Yeah,
that's speculative, right?
Right. Yes.
Mayday's death.
Mayday, she
so
sacrifices.
funny.
So let's talk about her flip. So like she realizes that he
has double crossed
her.
Yeah, and
she
she's-
says, "I thought he loved me, the bastard." Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So then she teams up with Bond. She helps him. Pulls
in
a
seconds,
Jaws.
she's already like another Quarrel character.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a hard flip.
Yeah.
She goes very evil to very
Because
good.
they've got to push the bomb out of the mine on a little hand cart, and the brake on the cart keeps on slipping and stopping it.
But
So
it only
they can't-
slips one time.
Well, it slips one time, and then she's convinced that it's going to slip again, so she's got to hold it manually. So
And then extremely dramatically has to tell him that she's going to stay on the cart and get bombed with the bomb. No, I have to stay and hold the brake. And she's just so dramatic. But she is the best actress in the film, though.
and Bond does push the thing out, and then he's like, "Mayday, jump! No, Mayday, Mayday!"
Yeah.
Because apparently, I don't know, he was into her. He was glad he finally flipped her.
They did
Usually-
have sex, too.
I mean, usually his magic dick does it right away, but this
Yeah.
one took a little delay. But she holds the handbrake and comes out of the mine, and meanwhile, Zorin has escaped in
She's
a
basically screaming back at him, "No, I have to die. It's in the script.
I cannot survive this movie.
I do not survive this scene."
"You don't want me to do a Jaws thing where I come back and it's so lame."
And it's so lame.
But Zorin and Scar Guy and Grandpa Nazi Horse Doctor all escape via a blimp that it's self-contained in like an outside
It's hidden in a
shed?
construction trailer.
Yeah,
it's a
construction trailer.
and it just sort of flops open, and then this blimp, which it looks like a blimp, it looks like a dirigible, but it isn't. It's actually just a big balloon because it inflates.
Right, so it inflates in several minutes. In reality, the blimp takes 24 hours to do that.
Oh, fun fact.
Yeah.
But a Zoran Zeppelin, they escape that way, and they're going to watch the place blow up from there.
By the way, what the hell are they doing? Because they see Mayday die, right? But before that, we've already seen them go overhead to get a view of the entire Silicon Valley.
Right.
So they went, they got away, got in the blimp, inflated it, got up to where they could hover above the mine because they look at it at one point. Then they sail away from there, get way up, see the whole Silicon Valley, fly around it for a while, and then come back to being about 10 feet above the mine.
It seemed like they traveled for quite a bit, and then almost
And they
immediately...
scoop her up, which is impossible. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, that's another thing. Yeah, but they see Mayday come out of the mine with the bomb in her cart, and Zoran's like, Mayday, and they make eye contact, and she has a great moment just before she explodes.
Oh hell yeah!
Where she gives him this look where she's kind of smiling because she's like, yeah, fuck you, and all of a sudden she's kind of serious yeah, this kind of sucks. This is a terrible way to end our relationship.
I've made poor choices.
But it's like a moment of sobering reality where she's definitely making eye contact with him, and it's almost see, this is what you get when you fuck with me, and she goes from being delighted that she's getting her revenge to being seriously, dude, don't fuck with me.
But then, so his plan right then and there is...
He's got to get another bomb and go back down to that mine.
Yeah.
But instead...
He could easily just fly away and, form a new plan, you know, from a distance. But he has to scoop up the girl.
Literally, they navigate a Zeppelin so close to the ground that he can scoop up a running girl. So he grabs Stacy Sutton.
Who is so dumb that she can't, look behind her.
Such a waste of time. I can't even,
just drop to the ground.
Yeah,
how do you...
you can't avoid a blimp.
A slow-moving
they
blimp.
Don't move fast.
I just love the genuine anxiety in your voice when you... She's such a waste of time. I don't understand.
I can't deal with it. It really it causes me anxiety just to think about. Oh, it's just so disappointing. And Bond is yelling at her. Stacy, look out for that blimp.
Look behind you.
Everyone knows blimps move slowly.
I guess in her defense, they're quiet, so maybe she didn't hear it.
But in the movie, this blimp is
in
not
her defense,
quiet.
She's pretty stupid.
The way the sound is mixed, the blimp is not quiet though.
She's setting a new standard for stupidity in Bond's beautiful.
So what do you think he could have done? Just flown away and been like, I didn't do it. I'm billionaire industrial Zoran.
He's still got
Trust me. Bond killed those people in the mine.
He's still got one sidekick and a machine gun, and all he's got to do is find a way to blow up this shit. I would go find another bomb and go back into that place and blow it up. You know, it's
Do you think he could have just started over, just go away?
Well, no, you're right. That's the thing, is that he had to kill all the witnesses, and all that were left were Bond.
But did he though?
Well, he machine gunned a lot of the miners, but I think a lot of them probably survived.
I wondered that too. There were a lot outside the mine doing particular jobs. So maybe he imploded the mine, but what about the people outside?
Okay, this is part of why this scene is so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because what?
So
what? Yeah.
but
anyway,
it
Bond
did get slightly better sort of at the end, where Bond actually grabs onto one of the tie ropes.
Yeah, for some reason. Okay, so he grabs onto the mooring rope, and he's dangling for a long time. I don't know.
All the way to get to the Golden Gate Bridge.
Well, before that, they fly it over the cityscape of San Francisco, and Bond almost gets hit in the nuts by the top of a building. Do you remember that?
He gets hit by the antenna. He gets an antenna to the dick.
What is that one building, the kind of triangle-y one? What's that called? Oh, man.
I know what it's
But
called.
you know what building it is? It's that very famous San Francisco skyline one, right?
I can't think of the name.
Triangle San Francisco.
It's like
tell us in the comments.
It's like the Trans-America building?
Yeah, Transamerica or something like that.
Something like
But it almost gets him in the balls, and he dodges it.
He lifts up. He's like, whoa.
But wait, what's the distance there? Silicon Valley to downtown San Francisco to the Golden Gate Bridge.
And as we've already
was that
100
miles?
A slow-moving blimp, a blimp that could barely overtake a woman.
Yeah, I don't think anyone could hold onto a rope that long.
Yeah.
Without,
no
one could.
Bond can.
Yeah.
Of course he.
Maybe Mayday could have, but
Zoran decides
he got blown up by dynamite.
By the way, the ending of this movie is some of the biggest self-owns in the history of just bad, like they could have just flown around for hours until Bond fell off. He wasn't even climbing the fucking thing. And instead they're like, hey, the Golden Gate Bridge, this would be fun. Let's whack him against the bridge. So they navigate to the top of the Golden Gate Bridge and they try to scrape him off. And of course, what does he do? He's attached to one of their mooring ropes. So he just tethers them to the bridge.
Ties a badass knot.
Yeah, really quickly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then, and how do they react? Christopher Walken, more power. He just yells more power over and over again, like that's going to like break this rope. And eventually it like causes the blimp to sort of crash against a thing. And then
he jumps out.
He jumps out, and he jumps out with an axe.
Well, no, he demands that Scarpine gets him. Get him now.
Get him.
And he gets up and falls, and it like gets knocked out in a comic fashion.
No, the girl hits him with a fire extinguisher.
The girl hits him with a fire
it's the other guy. The old man falls down.
And then she runs out and almost falls because she jumps onto the.
Oh, and then we get more her hanging from a thing and screaming.
James,
right.
Save me!
James,
Save me!
oh my God, I'm falling off!
It's like, kick off your heels. You can't. Of course, you can't walk on this thing. You're still wearing. How are you still wearing heels? You probably could outrun the blimp. If you
probably.
I like how she wears. Speaking of her heels, how she wears heels like. After they get changed into the like outfit of the miners,
and she's still wearing
the heels, and like someone notices, and he says something about like women's lib, like they're taking over or something like that.
Well, she also has a custom made mining outfit.
Yeah,
because the actress was like, "This isn't flattering."
I believe that it was.
Well, he says he's like, "Too bad you couldn't find an outfit that fit."
It's an ad lib because she demanded a new costume.
But
They gave her the coveralls, and she's like, "This isn't flattering."
So Bond's trying to keep her from falling off the Golden Gate Bridge. Meanwhile, Zorin's trying to hit him with an axe, and they have this sort of protracted battle, which was okay, kind of entertaining. It was like more the venue than anything else. It's neither one of them look like they're really combat ready there.
What was missing too is like, I personally enjoy when a villain is like part of their own undoing,
Yeah.
or like. There was no moment where, it looked like Bond was going to lose, and then he takes the upper hand by fooling him somehow or whatever. It was just sort of like two guys punching each other, tossing around,
Bond had just an equal chance, aside from the fact that he's like 30 years older and had no axe. But other than that, it was a pretty fair fight.
Or I wanted to see him like exploit a weakness that was like planted earlier. Christopher Walken's like.
His weakness is suspension bridges. He's fascinated by them, but they are his undoing.
Also, do you guys also feel
his weakness is he doesn't have talons in his hand? He just has a little more grip. Have you ever had that nightmare where you're like in that situation? Because at the end of the thing, he gets to that point where he's slipping off the bridge, but it's round and he's got nothing to grip, and he can sort of hold himself in place. But he can't climb up at all.
Yeah.
And he realizes that eventually he's just going to slip off this thing and die. And he kind of like, it's a great moment because Walken like sells it so well. At least at first he's like struggling, and then he's just sort of laughing at his predicament, like there's just no solution to it.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh shit, and then he just falls. But I've had that dream where you're in that situation where you're like holding on for dear life, but there's no way you can ever climb up, and all you can do is just sort of wait for the inevitable to happen.
You're making my hands clammy just like talking about that.
I've not had that as a dream. I've had the dream where you're on a bridge that's going out and it's shrinking size beneath you so that eventually you'll fall off.
Oh, I've never had that one.
I have this dream where I realize I was signed up for a math class all semester long, and now the test is tomorrow, and I haven't studied, and I don't know anything about the class. I don't even know if the professor will know who I am. I can't even pull it off.
I still have this dream now?
Yeah, I sure do.
I don't think you ever outgrow that terrified that you didn't know some test was coming in high school.
Right.
I always have those dreams, and I always realize like I'm out of high school. I haven't been in high school in 20-something years.
I still had those through college, but they were like college classes in the dream. But eventually they went away.
It's like a worry.
I haven't had to go
it means
to
you're
a
worried about
test.
something.
Yeah, but I haven't had to go to a test in a long time. I feel like the problem with what we're doing right now is all three of us are going to have all of these nightmares like soon
tonight.
Now. Yeah.
I hope so. I haven't had a good nightmare in a while. They're kind of fun.
Anyway, let's sum this movie
weirdo.
up. So Christopher Walken falls to his horrible death, and then the best part is grandpa Nazi old man horse doctor.
Yeah, you see his heartbreak.
You see his heartbreak. He's basically his child or
He also
his
has
creation.
a
his
monocle.
dad.
He also has a monocle, and it's stuck into his skin.
Yes, it's like a perma monocle.
I didn't say that yet, right?
No.
It needs to be said.
Yeah, it's an important plot.
It is.
So he wants to kill him. The only way he knows how. What else would you keep in a blimp but stacks of dynamite?
He lights one and he's gonna throw it at him.
And
How does that seem like a good idea?
And also, you have
he's
to time
going to
that
destroy a
perfectly.
national monument while he's at it.
You have to time that perfectly too, because there's nothing for it to he can't lob it in his direction where it'll sit somewhere, as we just saw with Max Zorin.
Yeah, it's
Things
not
just
gonna
slide right off those
Yeah,
cables.
it's gonna bounce off the
Yeah.
cable and fall into the bay
or
explode
or onto
somewhere in
cars
there.
or
Yeah,
something.
down
Yeah.
below.
Right.
Yeah. It's such an ill-conceived idea, but it's even worse in the execution because he immediately trips and falls backwards and drops
And
the dynamite
drops the
into his own
dynamite.
lap. And meanwhile, Scarface is just waking up and he's like, "Oh, whoa! This
Oh, yeah.
wasn't."
Bond
this wasn't
cuts
a
the
good plan."
mooring
And then
the
they
blimp
collectively
flies
fumble
away.
over the dynamite.
For a good
Like
while, too. Like,
clowns.
come on, like clowns. You guys get your act together. Like, it's dynamite. What are you doing?
This is dynamite. This is serious. One of you grab it and throw it.
The
hell
wick
out
is like this
of the
long. It's like a
blimp.
fucking foot long. They have so much time. And then so the blimp blows up.
And then something else happens. I don't even remember how this. What is the ending? Of
They're back in her boring house, and they're taking
everyone
a
thinks
shower.
Bond's dead because he never answered. Because he just disappeared and never. How did he get down
Yeah.
for the?
So they cut to
Golden Bridge?
him, and they're like,
He
"We still
climbed
don't know
down
where."
the what do you call it? The catwalk? Is that what it's
They have
called?
ladders on that thing. Can you climb that thing?
No, it's like this part, like the.
He didn't climb down that. He climbed down one of the tower parts. You're not supposed to walk on that part.
No, you are. You
The
can.
part that he was on?
Yeah,
No, you're supposed to. There's. I don't.
it has like a railing you could hold on to.
I don't think
Wait,
that's
can
how he
people
went.
walk on it? Could I
find
walk
out.
on it?
I don't. I don't think
really
that's.
want to do this. Is this
Yeah.
allowed? Can you walk on the
No,
Golden
it's not
Bridge?
allowed.
Guys,
Why would they
I've
allow
climbed
that?
many bridges in my day. All right,
You've climbed the suspension part of a suspension bridge.
suspension bridge.
Yeah.
Anyway,
After the
But they-
blimp
they-
blows
why is
up,
he
they cut
presumed
to they cut to M or whatever or somebody, and they're
Is
like,
Q in this movie? Is there a
Yeah,
Q?
yeah.
part?
Yes, that's
Q-
an important
Q's-
part of the
It's
last
like right
scene.
now, right? Other
Well,
than this
because
scene.
they set him up.
Well, they set him
Q
up
is
at
in
the
the very,
beginning.
very first scene where they talk about the microchip,
yeah.
right? Because Q is like has to
Explains
explain what the microchip
yeah, He
is.
explains what an electromagnetic pulse.
In
is.
that scene, Q also has a little remote control robot. So in the final scene, we cut to M and Moneypenny's crying because they're like, we don't know where Bond is, and then we cut to Q and Q is like checking in on Bond at Sutton's house, but he's using the little remote control robot. So he drives it into the shower and watches them shower, and that's how the movie ends.
Oh,
and he throws the towel onto the robot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Beautiful. And then it says James Bond will return. It doesn't say
Doesn't say what movie.
what movie.
Or what Bond?
And going forward, they never say the title of the movie, right? Or did they?
No, I think they start doing it again after.
Oh, really?
They just don't know the title yet of this one.
Because I know,
I
like
guess we'll have to
now
find
in the
out.
modern movies, they never say the title because they don't know what the title is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So that's that. Great
Oh, I didn't
movie.
get to talk about the quiche.
Oh yeah. Do you want to talk about the quiche briefly?
You want to throw the quiche in here?
Well, okay, so apparently there was a popular book in the early 80s that was sort of similar to, do you remember the Chuck Norris memes where it's like Chuck Norris could do this or Chuck Norris could do that? It was sort of similar to that. It was like kind of a satirical kind of masculinity thing. And it was called Real Men Don't Eat Quiche or something like that. And so to kind of poke fun at it, Bond is able to make quiche. So he's like not just this picture of traditional masculinity. He can do it all, right? So I thought that was really fascinating that they were still trying to take the character to another level. And that's kind of the last thing that Roger Moore left us with. You know, I was Bond for these years, and we know he's a tough guy. And I think, you know, Harris, you've said before, you don't see Roger Moore as much of a tough guy as Sean Connery was. And we also saw him go through, you know, the 70s. He made a joke about women's lib in this. Kind of something they're saying now is James Bond has our traditional, you know, masculinity, but also goes beyond it because he's got all this class and this, you know, he's building that lore, right? So I thought it was fascinating. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's an interesting piece of trivia that you bring up Real Men Don't Eat Quiche, because that's a book written by Bruce Fierstein,
Who wrote
GoldenEye and
GoldenEye.
Tomorrow Never Dies and The World Is Not Enough. He also wrote a book called Nice Guys Sleep Alone, which was part of the Real Men Don't Eat Quiche. I think that was one in a series. Which
what do you mean he wrote GoldenEye? Like the
he
screenplay?
wrote the screenplay to GoldenEye.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's why it's fascinating.
Interesting.
Yep. So he's sort of like a comedy satire writer, but then he also did these
and they're kind of
movies.
poking fun at him, but he like is in on the joke later because he's like, I could write for this.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. So this was our final Roger Moore movie. So
I think it's time to maybe rank his movies and see what we
Recap.
thought. Yeah, and it was our favorite. So I guess before we do that, we have to rank this movie. Do we want to just quickly kind of come to a vote?
I'll go
I don't want to go first. Okay, go.
I'll go first. There are worse James Bond movies than this.
Yeah.
Just in the Moore era alone, I think like Octopussy, Man with the Golden Gun, Moonraker are all like aggressively dumb stories that are super heavy on cheese. I feel like A View to a Kill is easier to follow. It dials down the cornball jokes a lot. It has some decent action set pieces, a good cold open, a memorable score, a solid turn by Walken. It should be a decent movie. It's not. It's super boring. I would have rather seen Moore go out with another like so bad it's good train wreck like Octopussy than this, because it's the like cinematic equivalent of a yawn. It had its moments, but overall like this was not a. I feel like it's better when they go big and just completely it's a fucking mess. At least it's an interesting mess. I will continue to give those 002s and 003s. I gave this one a 004 just because I think it's, passable, but it was such a drag to get through the second half.
You prefer the clusterfuck and the shit show to the yawn fest or the snooze fest?
I clearly don't, because I rated this higher, but I do. There is some appeal to those. At least those ones are like amusing in how like off the rails they go. Whereas this one is like they played it so safe that it couldn't have been a disaster, but it also couldn't have been great. And I feel like at least you're swinging for the fences with something like Moonraker,
which was excellent.
Yeah, a classic, if you will.
Yeah. Well, 004.
Okay.
004.
I thought you were going to go higher from the things you said.
004 is pretty high for me. We're not on the Collins scale of like, I wasn't really feeling it, so it's just a 007.
It's like, is he James Bond? Okay, that's a few points. Yeah, so this one is half good. The first half, I'm with it, and the second half, I'm not. Like right about at the halfway point, I'm like, okay, this should be almost over, and then you get a bunch of crap that's really boring, and it all falls apart, and then you see why it isn't working. I think they fell into this problem that they've had before. We've seen the ending of the movie drag, and this one, like the middle to the end, dragged, so that's worse somehow. And we've seen them kind of get lost in between this negotiation between having a nice story and a nice plot and working in all these action sequences and big set pieces and locations that they want to do, and not really kind of melding them together and meshing them together into one cohesive story. And like that makes it fall apart. And so I guess that's all I got to say. It's half good, so I gave it a 5. Because that's half of how many of the full numbers that are in the rating system. Yeah, I think you understood.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you guys. For once, I think we all kind of feel the same way about a movie.
There are some really likable things about this.
Yeah, my memory, like I'd seen this movie, I guess as a kid, and I think I remember enjoying it more then, but I also question whether I saw the entire movie or if I just caught like the ending or something, and the ending.
All I remember is the ending from seeing it as a kid.
That is the only part of this movie that is like memorable.
You could watch
and the poster, which is still one of my all-time favorite Bond posters.
Yeah, because it's got the ending.
I think is what made it a 004 for me and not a 003.
Yeah. I'd say watch the first half, skip the next
40 minutes
to 50 minutes, maybe 55, and watch the end.
This might be another good one. What was it? There was one that you said was like good if you didn't really want to pay attention and you were gonna like doze off during it, or
Yeah,
check
it was
your
for your eyes only.
I feel
only,
like this
yeah.
is another one that's like probably good for that.
Yeah, especially if you hit that sweet spot. If you fall asleep right after the first hour.
Yeah, then wake up when stuff's
Yeah.
exploding. Yeah, you'll be in good shape.
I think I had, unlike the other films that we've covered, I had a unique viewing experience with this one where I watched the first half of it like about a week ago, and then I watched the second half yesterday. And I don't know if it's because I watched it that way, but like nothing is really like sticking. And I know if like a month goes by, I'm going to totally forget the plot of this movie except for the end. And for that, I have to rate it pretty low because I'm looking at my other movies and it like certain ones I rated a 4 or a 5. And I think I like those movies better than this one. And I just have to I feel like I have to grow up and just give this movie a 002.
Oh, ouch.
Oh my god!
I know.
Wow.
Wow.
And
I
a
know.
huge shocker, I gave it the highest rating.
Well, I think the big surprise is that I didn't give it the lowest rating.
Yeah.
That's the big surprise.
I thought I would for sure give this like a 4
All
or
right,
a 5.
well, I was debating. I felt like I might have rated it too highly, so I feel like that balances it out. So it's up in the right place.
All right, so I have the official Roger Moore rankings here.
Okay.
Drum roll, please. In dead last with 004, we have a tie. View to a Kill and Octopussy. All right, up next
wow, okay.
with a
That
005,
makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
beating those two, is Man with a Golden Gun.
This is
Okay,
checking
yeah.
out so far. This
Right.
is about what I think.
All right, right above that with a 006 is For Your Eyes Only.
Nice.
With a hot 007 is our favorite, Moonraker.
Yes.
I'm glad I docked out enough points to keep it 007.
With a 008, a very high-ranking 008, we have Live and Let Die.
Of course.
And then our favorite Roger Moore movie.
And I think our favorite Bond movie so far.
Yeah, I think so. With
Maybe.
the highest ranking of 009 is The Spy Who Loved Me.
The Spy Who Loved Me.
Nobody does it better.
Nobody does it better than that movie. Cool. Do you guys give this a license to watch?
No, not no.
It's a strange one because, I don't know, maybe I don't give it a license to watch. I feel like you need to see it just for the weirdness of this movie. I don't know.
I want to cut out from like 1 hour to 1 hour 50 and just cut in about 5 minutes of me explaining like what you missed. You know what's tough about this one, I think, is anytime you get Christopher Walken and Grace Jones in a movie together on screen,
Which
it's
I
going to
think
be
is
tough
just-
to say don't watch
I
that.
think this is just this one time. And
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah, they're pretty watchable. So I mean, maybe just watch their scenes. Could you just do
maybe,
that?
yeah.
You know what's interesting about Allison Duty is that she's hot, so you could say she's a hot duty. You know what else is interesting? She's a villain in The Last Crusade,
Yeah.
and the other villain in Last Crusade was also a Bond villain.
Yeah.
And also, The Last Crusade features Sir Sean Connery, who
And she was also in a movie with Pierce Brosnan too. I read, so she's been in a movie with like a couple of Bond
Few
actors.
Bonds, yeah.
3.
Whatever
out of
happened,
6.
whatever happened to that duty?
She like did Last Crusade, and then after that, she just kind of petered out. She did a couple of like TV movies.
Maybe
and-
she's still working now. Is she?
No, I think I think she's married like a CEO of some like media conglomerate or something.
And probably took his name. Although she didn't change it before, so maybe she's still.
Still a duty and forever. Will
I
always
won't
be.
I won't take your name. Why? I'll always be a duty.
That would be the first thing I would do in Hollywood. if my name was
His name
Duty.
is like it's pronounced Shitpile.
You change your name to Latrine?
Used to be shit house.
All right, that's our show. Thanks for listening. If you like the show, please rate us on iTunes and give us a shout out on social media. Or please, for the love of God, hit up our inbox at Bondcast James Bondcast at gmail.com or message us on Reddit under the James Bond subreddit.
All inquiries and comments are welcome.
Yes. we will return. Actually, enjoy the holidays. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Kwanzaa to everyone. And we'll see you in 2019. This is our last show of 2018.
Whoop, whoop.
Whoop whoop.
Let
We've
old
got some.
acquaintance be forgot.
We've got some surprises in
I don't
store.
know the words to that actually.
No one does.
Okay.
We've got some surprises in store for 2019. Some hot mini episodes, and we'll be exploring the films of Timothy Dalton next.
Yeah. And it'll be in the future.
It will be in the future.
See you in the future.
See
We'll
you
be
in
back
the
with
future.
The Living Daylights.